Thank you for joining us here with the KNT Network at 6 o'clock. We have just gotten word of a breakthrough story. You're going to want to sit down for this. We have heard that no one knows how blood travels through the heart and into the body. So tonight, our news anchor Karli Waldrep is going to walk us through those steps. You're going to want to stick around for this. Hello everyone, this is Karli Waldrep. Thank you for joining us on our breaking news story tonight about teaching the world how blood travels through the heart and through the body. You're going to see on this diagram next to me as I walk through the steps of how our blood travels through our heart. Now, we first have our deoxygenated blood. And so our deoxygenated blood is going to enter into the heart through the superior vena cava. Now, if you were to scroll down with me, we also have our inferior vena cava. Now, the blood can travel both of these directions into our heart. Now, if we scroll back up to the top of our heart here, the next thing that's going to happen is blood is going to go in to our right atrium. Now, as it travels through our right atrium, it's then going to travel through what we like to call the tricuspid valve. As it's traveling through the tricuspid valve, it's then going to make its way into the right ventricle. After it has entered into the right ventricle, it's going to make its way up into the pulmonary semilunar valve. Now, after it's entered into the pulmonary semilunar valve, it's going to enter into the pulmonary trunk. Now, from here, it can go into our pulmonary arteries, and this is where it's going to leave the heart. Now, our pulmonary arteries, it's going to take it then to the lungs. So it's going to go through our pulmonary arteries, and then it's going to take that blood to the lungs. Now, after it has taken the blood through the lungs, it's going to come back in through our pulmonary veins. Now, as the blood is coming back in through your pulmonary veins, this blood is going to be oxygenated blood. So when it first entered the heart, it was deoxygenated, and now it's going to come in as oxygenated blood. Once it makes its way through those pulmonary veins, it's going to enter into the left atrium. After the left atrium, it's going to make its way down the bicuspid valve. And then it's going to continue on down into our left ventricle. Now, once it enters into the left ventricle, similar to the right ventricle, it's going to make its way up a valve. Now, it's not this pulmonary semilunar valve, it's going to be the aortic semilunar valve. The aortic semilunar valve is then going to give our blood all the way up into our ascending aorta. Now, once it's in our ascending aorta, it kind of has multiple ways of which it can go. One of those ways is it's going to continue up into our aortic arch. Now, as it hits the aortic arch, you'll see that there's 3 different ways that this blood could travel. One of those ways is down into the descending aorta. Or the blood can go into our brachiocephalic trunk, which is this first one right here. So your brachiocephalic trunk. Next to the brachiocephalic trunk, we have our left common carotid artery. your left common carotid artery. And lastly, right next to our left common carotid artery, your blood could go into the left subclavian artery. Blood flows through the brachiocephalic trunk. It then has two other options of ways that it could travel. It could go into our right common carotid artery, or it also can go through our right subclavian artery. I know my writing got a little messy there. Now here is kind of a final view of what blood is going to look like as it goes into the heart. So it comes in as deoxygenated blood through our superior vena cava. It goes to our right atrium, our tricuspid valve, to the right ventricle, up into the pulmonary semilunar valve, then through the pulmonary trunk, into our pulmonary arteries, which brings this blood to the lungs. Blood then returns as oxygenated through the pulmonary veins into our left atrium, down through our bicuspid valve, into our left ventricle. Then it goes through our aortic semilunar valve up into our ascending aorta. Here we also next have our aortic arch and then our descending aorta. We also have three branches off of our aortic arch, which are the brachiocephalic trunk, our left common carotid artery, as well as our left subclavian artery. Now, after the blood has gone through the heart, it's then going to continue down the body. We are going to take a short ad break, and then we will continue on as blood travels through the body after it has traveled through the heart.
This is majestic.
Feeling better?
On top of the world!
Advil targets pain at the source of inflammation. When pain comes for you, come back with Advil.
And welcome back to the newsroom. So we are going to continue on with how blood flows through our body. So we just left our heart, and now we're going to look at a few different parts of the body. So the first thing that we are going to look at is right underneath the heart, we have something called the cephalic trunk. Now the cephalic trunk, we're going to make this tiny little circle right here. So with our cephalic trunk, we have three different parts that line up or are connected to our cephalic trunk. And those would be our left gastric artery. So we'll just make a small little notch off there. That's our left gastric artery. We also have one that's kind of like a spinny shape, and that is our splenic artery. And then our final artery is our common hepatic artery. Now, our left gastric artery is going to go to our stomach. Our common hepatic artery is going to be going to our liver, and our splenic artery is going to be going to our spleen. Now, after we have these arteries, we are going to move down in the body to our superior mesenteric artery. Now here with our superior mesenteric artery, we have two other arteries that are kind of coming off the sides here. And I know my one is going out of the body a little bit, but we're running out of word space here. And these are going to be our renal glands. Now there is a right as well as a left. And then as we continue down from our superior mesenteric artery, we're going to be going to our inferior mesenteric artery. Now, from our inferior mesenteric artery, we have two other glands. I'm sorry, they're arteries, not glands. So this should be our renal artery. Our artery. So from our inferior mesocentric artery, we have our gonadal arteries. And again, just like the renal, we have a right as well as a left side. From here down, we're going to have our abdominal aorta. And then after our abdominal aorta, all the way down a little bit of the ways, we are going to have our left and right common. So our right as well as our left common iliac arteries. Now, if we go through the body again, we have our cephalic trunk, which has our left gastric artery, our splenic artery, as well as our common hepatic artery. As we move further down, we have our superior mesocentric artery, which has our right and left renal arteries. And then as we move down, we have our inferior mesocentric artery, which then has our gonadal arteries, our right and our left. And then we also have our abdominal aorta, and all the way down, we have our right and left common iliac arteries. So this is the basis of what blood flow through the body looks like. So we reviewed how blood flows through the heart and then how blood flows through the body. I want to thank you all for watching our breaking news story tonight. I'm going to pass it back to the newsroom. Thank you. Thank you for joining us back in the newsroom. Karli, thank you again for teaching us how blood flows through the heart and how it flows through the body. I want to thank you all for watching the nightly news tonight. Have a great night.